Good morning, folks. It's Sonia with 2x2 Farms and Lagotto. It's a nice rainy day here on the farm. I just came in from doing farm chores, so I look a little rough, but I wanted to get this video out because the number one question I get from people is, what do you feed your Lagotto and how? So I want you to get a notebook. I want you to watch the whole video, especially if you have a puppy from us or you're getting a puppy from us. I'm made some notes, so I'll look down at my notes every once in a while. You'll see our beautiful view in the back. That is the farm across the street, and there's a traffic going down the road. So sorry for that distraction. So this is the dog food episode. So I'm going to give you my thoughts on dog food first. I've been breeding almost, well, right at 30 years. I'm an AKC breeder of merit. I've raised multiple champions, had the #1 dog in the country year before last. My parents raised Dobermans and Dalmatians when I was growing up, and I survived that. And we had a border collie who was crazy, just crazy, as I've mentioned in another episode. So I've watched dog food evolve over the years. From when my parents were raising, we had this awful kibble, and we had a can on the kitchen counter where scraps went in, and those went to feed the pigs and the dogs. So dog food and dog feeding has evolved greatly over the years. I've also lived through, and my dogs have lived through, 6 recalls. There are only a few manufacturers in the country. So that means that if you are getting your food directly from the company that makes it, you know that those quality controls, those quality checks are in place. If you're getting your food from a mom and pop or a private label, then you can't always be assured. If you're getting your food from a small run company, that makes me nervous. So there's too much money at stake in the dog food industry to not realize that we may be being taken advantage of. And what I mean by that is we anthropomorphize. We want the best for our dogs. We want the absolute best for their nutrition. So these companies spend a crap ton of money marketing to you so that you feel like you're feeding the best. Sometimes you are, sometimes you aren't. The bigger the marketing budget for a company, though, I question, why aren't they using that money for nutritional marketing and research? Or nutritional research. Just a thought I've had. They're playing on our emotions, and keywords like human grade, organic. Yes, you want something that's the best, but human grade in the dog food industry is something that they use to play on your emotions. So let's talk about what dogs would eat if they were out running wild. Let's say I turned all my dogs loose. I'm not going to, but let's say that we had a pack of dogs running through the farm. They're not always predatory like wolves. They've kind of lost that because wolves will predatorily pick off one animal. They won't kill a whole pack. When I was growing up, I remember a sheep farmer down the road from me, a pack of dogs got in, killed every single one of his sheep, and didn't eat any of it. Didn't eat a single lamb, just chewed on them, killed them. It was awful. Sorry for that graphic and disgusting commentary there. but I'm using it to prove a point that dogs are really more opportunistic and less predatory than their ancestors. The opportunistic aspect of them means that they can be carrion eaters too. So they happen upon roadkill, they happen upon something that's already weak or dying or dead, which sounds gross, but we have to be realistic when we're assessing what our dog's needs are. So let's say I let the dogs out to fend for themselves. Like I said, I'm not going to. And they found one of my sheep that was young, maybe it was newborn, maybe it was sick. I don't have sick sheep here either, so this is all hypothetical. But they're going to feed on the soft parts. They're going to feed on the parts that are less appetizing to us. They're not going to stay around and try to get that filet mignon. Sorry, folks. They're not going to try to get that ribeye. They're going to feed on the soft belly parts, the internal organs that they can get to very quickly. And then they're going to move on to the next opportunity. You just heard Maisie chewing on a bone down here. Sorry for that. All right, so now that I have kind of given you my thoughts on that, here's what I use. And this is 30 plus years experience, and actually calling the nutrition and research department at these dog food companies because, like I said, I've been through 6 recalls. By the way, a company that has had a recall, the best time to choose their food is immediately after that recall, because they have figured out what caused the recall. Bendy, come here. Bendy, come here. Sorry about that. Now Bendy and Maisie are both chewing on bones. Anyway, so I use ProPlan Performance, the 30-20 blend. It is in a black bag with a purple stripe. I use that for gestating females, for females who are in whelp, lactating, or weaning puppies. And I use it to start puppies and grow puppies. I use that for puppies up to about 20 pounds and all my show dogs. And that is the 30% protein, 20% fat. If you'll notice on the bag, it will give you some feeding instructions. I disregard those feeding instructions because I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all feeding program. And like I said, their feeding guidelines, feeding recommendations. I've had many a dog owner over the years make their dog fat by following to a T the instructions on the back of a dog food bag. We'll get to how to feed your Lagotto in a minute. Adults, dogs that aren't in whelp, aren't lactating, aren't weaning puppies, aren't on the show circuit, they get a 26-16, ProPlan Performance 26-16. And again, that's the fat to protein ratio. It's in a black bag with a green stripe. And I also use, we'll talk about raw here in a minute, but I also use Darwin's and Honest Kitchen. If you want to feed a Lagotto that you get from me a raw diet, please touch base with me. I had someone who bought an Australian Shepherd from me years ago, and they were giving the dog the kibble that I suggested, which at the time was ProPlan Performance. They were adding to that blueberries and buttermilk. And they took their dog in to neuter, did the pre-anesthetic blood work, had to postpone the pre-anesthetic blood work because of some kidney issues. They called me all freaked out, accusing me of raising ill dogs. Of course, this puppy is 7 or 8 months at this point. We backtracked, found out that they were feeding blueberries and buttermilk. Oh, and eggs, raw eggs. So there was a thiamine deficiency also, which is why the dog had been having some skin issues. So they had the best of intentions. They had no intention of harming their dog, but they did in fact harm their dog. And it was, they recovered, the dog recovered. It was just a good example of an owner gone wild. So I'll address raw now. The idea is a great idea. If you think about it, it's more natural. It's a basic type of food or a way to feed. You're taking chicken necks and bone-in chicken breasts and thighs and wings. You're taking maybe some wild game. You're utilizing lamb, cow, chicken, turkey, which when you have 9 Lagotto, isn't necessarily feasible, especially when we travel. There's no way in the world I could imagine Madison, my kennel manager, chopping chicken necks. Honestly, I don't have time to chop chicken necks. If you have 1 or 2 dogs, I think it's or 5 or 10, if this is your intention, it's by all means your prerogative. However, and there are no additives, so, it sounds great on paper, except then you can really mess up your dog because you don't know the exact proportions of protein to fat, what nutritional additives they might need. Do they need carrots this day and blueberries this day, or salmon and potatoes? What do they need? I leave that up to people who have a multi-million-dollar dietary research budget. I don't have that. So what I feed when I need to feed raw, and I've got a couple dogs here who do better on raw, is Darwin's and Honest Kitchen. I will say that raw will make a very lean dog. So for that, it is good for Lagotto because they're fatties, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. So feeding raw, consult with me. Most of the time your veterinarian is gonna say no, but I understand the need and desire, so chat with me about it, or use Darwin's and Honest Kitchen. Also, when speaking about raw diets, I have to add in here that the companion owner should not confuse feeding a raw diet with feeding table scraps. If you are not strictly feeding a raw diet with a plan of action in place, either ordering it from a company that makes this raw diet with specific ingredients, and you're just adding eggs or chicken broth or yogurt or cottage cheese or carrots or sweet potatoes to your dog's kibble, I highly advise against that for several reasons. First, unless you're using it as an occasional treat, you can disrupt their digestion, you can disrupt their metabolism, you can also, quite honestly, create some reactions, maybe allergic reactions, maybe it will start a trail of deficiencies that you had no intention of starting, like giving raw eggs to your dog more than once a week can cause thiamine deficiencies, which then affects your vitamin B uptake, which then causes skin issues. So Lagotto just don't have skin issues. I don't have, in my lines, any skin issues with Lagotto. So I highly advise against supplementing your kibble, thinking that you're giving a partial raw diet to your dogs. I'm just very much against that, because you're already getting a well-balanced meal in a bowl by a company who has given you a guarantee for nutritional, a well-balanced nutrition. That's my take on that. It also, you have no way of managing their calories when you're adding table scraps in like that. And like I said, Lagotto, they're fatties. If you want to use those as treats, by all means do so, but add it into your dog's daily intake, maybe no more than 1/8 of a cup a day, and manage that with their kibble, what you're giving them. So if you're giving 2 cups of kibble a day and you want to add 1/4 cup of treats with some carrots and the occasional egg or piece of chicken or yogurt or cottage cheese, make sure you deduct 1/4 cup of dog food out of the daily intake. We use yogurt here to supplement when a dog has an upset stomach. I'll talk about supplements here in a minute, because everybody needs supplements, humans, dogs. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So I hope I'm clear on not feeding your dog table scraps. The other thing it does is cause your dog to bag and table and counter surf. And because they smell that, they get acclimated to smelling, ooh, mom's got cottage cheese out, and I'm just going to help myself on the counter here to this today while she's not watching. Well, then they positively have reinforced a negative behavior by helping themselves to what's on the table and counter. And then you begin a cycle that you just don't want to get on that. We never give our dogs table scraps in the presence of the container or in the kitchen or from our dining room table. I don't have any dog out of all our dogs that beg, because I don't like begging dogs. I want to have guests over without a drooling dog tripping over them under the table. And I don't want dogs counter surfing. If I put my Christmas ham on the counter, I don't want my dog even putting their nose in the air to smell that. But I'm pretty strict. So, all right. So talking again about what I use Pro Plan Performance 3020. It's in a black bag with a purple stripe. I also use Pro Plan Performance 2616. That is in a black bag with a green stripe. I use Darwin's and Honest Kitchen. Now, my other favorite food in the world, besides Pro Plan Performance, is Royal Canin. I love Royal Canin. I love their nutritional department. I love their customer service. I love that they're not advertising. I just love it. So how come I'm not feeding that? Well, I do still sometimes, but where I live, it was very hard to get, and ordering it on Amazon, there was constant back orders, which created some frustration for me. If I can get that resolved, I don't know which one I would choose, because we're doing so well on Pro Plan Performance. I've fed that straight now for, I think, 5 years. Before that, I have tried Diamond, I've tried Origin, I've tried Taste of the Wild, I've tried Blue Buffalo, I've tried Nature's Best, Diamond Naturals, Flint River. There was another one I can't remember. Anyway, I've tried it all, and let me just tell you, I keep coming back to Pro Plan Performance. So there was a dog food a couple of years ago that had a recall, and I immediately switched back to Pro Plan Performance. Out of the farm store, when we had the farm store open, I fed another dog food, which shall remain nameless at the moment because it, in fact, caused a couple of issues with our dogs, and I'm still sorting that out with the vet and the company. And if you'd like to know which food that is, I can tell you off camera. But it definitely caused some issues. So research is showing that the high protein that are in some of these foods, the protein sources are causing digestive issues, they're causing renal and autoimmune issues, liver failures. So, feeding $70 or $80 a bag food doesn't mean that you're doing the best thing for your dog. So I just want y'all to be careful. This is what we recommend. And I think 30 years of experience with this, actually more, because I was raised with dogs. I worked in vet clinics. I've got a degree in animal science, and I'm an RN. I think that my experience should count for something when you're taking one of our puppies home. So you'll just follow our recommendations. I can't make you feed what I recommend. Oh, I could put it in my contract, and I know breeders that do that. But I'm fairly liberty-minded, so I can just hope that you watch this and take to heart what I'm saying. So a lot of people also think that, I'll feed them fish. I'll feed them some kind of organic something, and the next thing you know, you're looking at the label and there's fish meal, which is not terribly digestible and actually can cause some issues. There's several breeds that literally you just don't feed anything with fish meal. It says salmon on the bag, but then you look and it says fish meal in the ingredients. It kind of depends on the source if you're going to feed something that is fish-based, but I want to point this out. It's not on a dog's menu. They're not running into the river to catch a salmon. They may be opportunistic and find a dead fish on the riverbank, but overall, they're not running into the ocean to grab a salmon or a tuna, or they're just not. If you are feeding something that has a plant-based protein like peas, even if you're not going to breed your dog, even if you plan to spay and neuter, anything pea-based or soy-based will disrupt estrogen and cause lots of problems in your dog. We had a couple of litters that we missed because one of the foods that shall remain nameless had peas as one of the sources of protein and disrupted estrogen, and when it disrupts estrogen, you have fertility issues. But on top of fertility issues, and this is why the companion owner needs to be concerned about this, it also disrupts hormones, which can cause issues. So lamb, beef, chicken, those are easy sources, the best sources. They're going to be consistent sources of protein. So managing that is important. One of the other things I want to talk about, a lot of people have emailed me over the years, and for some reason everybody's on a dog food question this week because I've had tons of questions about what to feed Lagotto. And they noticed that I feed Pro Plan Performance, and they'd seen some negative reviews and commentary, some naysayers about Pro Plan Performance. Let me just say this. 90% of the winners at the recent dog shows where we competed and won were fed or are fed Purina Pro Plan or Royal Canin. I think I saw a statistic on one of the dog club's websites that said over 90% of dogs at the recent national championship were fed Purina Pro Plan. And what that should mean to you, so you're not going to show your dog if you're a companion owner. What that should mean to you is these people who make 6 figures a